Kumaris World Spiritual University since 1986, steadily progressing to become an experienced teacher of Rajyoga Meditation and a facilitator of positive thinking, stress management, and inner leadership workshops. With more than 30 years of dedicated service, she has helped thousands of people live happier, more fulfilled lives through the practical application of spiritual wisdom and conscious thought. A respected humanitarian and inspirational speaker in South Africa, Usha Sisters' clarity of thought and compassionate guidance have supported individuals from diverse walks of life on their personal development journeys. For three decades, she has shared her insights with youth, women, the elderly, prisoners, people with disabilities, patients receiving palliative care, NGO colleagues, healthcare professionals, and educators. In addition to her meditation teaching and workshops, Usha Jivan's sister serves in leadership roles within the National Brahma Kumaris community. She has been the board member of the Brahma Kumaris World Spiritual University, South Africa, and is actively engaged in initiatives that bring a spiritual dimension to broader social concerns. In 2010, she joined the Brahma Kumaris Environmental Initiative and was part of the organization's representation in the United Nations climate change conferences, including COP17 in Durban, where she contributed to interfaith and environmental dialogue. Usha Sisters' work emphasizes inner transformation as a foundation for outer change, promoting emotional well being, resilience, and harmony in relationships through meditation and self awareness. Her grounded and heartfelt approach continues to inspire individuals and communities across South Africa and beyond. We are so lucky, sister, to have you today with us. And we're really looking forward to hearing you speak on this very important subject of courage in the confluence age. So, over to you, sister. We're looking forward to hearing you.
Om Shanti and good morning. So perhaps the theme itself is very close to my heart because I could perhaps start off with a little story. In the early days when we used to meet Baba in Om Shanti Bhavan, I don't know if you how many years each of you are with Baba, but the setting in Om Shanti Bhavan was very specific in that just about 3 meters away from the stage, there used to be a little box where TV and the camera used to be, and on that box itself became the backrest for Daddy Prakash Mani and Sister Jainti, who used to sit on the floor and be in front when Baba used to come. And they used to sit there throughout the Murli. And so then in front of Sister Mohini, Sister Jainti and Daddy G, Sister Manda, Gayatri used to sit. And then there used to be one more row of space available, which was right in front, like you were almost touching the stage. And so we young sisters used to always have an opportunity to just like huddle around Sister Jainti and Daddy G. But one such day when after the Murli was over, normally Daddy G would go onto the stage and Jainti Ben would accompany her. So that space would actually get available and there would be a lot of movement. And I remember on this one occasion, I just decided to like move forward and I had almost my chin on the stage. So I was really right up front. And because there was so much of movement, no one was really focusing on Bab Dada. So I was just taking sweet drishti from Baba. And after a little while, because I couldn't actually speak Hindi, I had my earphones on, and in those days, Shilu Didi used to translate for those in English. And slowly I started hearing this very beautiful blessing that she looks little, but she has a lot of courage and is doing a lot of service. And then Shilu Didi says, Baba is speaking to me. And it was really so special to receive that personal blessing from Baba about courage. And so I've always used that as a reflection in whatever I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And it's also made me churn it a little bit more. But perhaps just a little bit of history that will give you the what I'm trying to say. So in South Africa itself, because of the context that, we were in the apartheid, we're talking about 1986 before that. And so we only had our first democratic elections in 1994. So up to that point, we couldn't have anyone who had an Indian passport come to South Africa because there was a stamp on all Indian passports that you're allowed to travel to all countries except of South Africa. And so we couldn't get any of the seniors, no daddies, no diddies to visit us. And so our service started with Baba's children from London who used to come and serve. And so obviously when we used to go to Madhuban, we used to allow to go, we had permission to go to India without even needing a visa. But unfortunately, that was it. No one could come to us. And so, because of that, at a very, very young age, just coming into Gyan, I remember actually moving into the center at the age of 21 and then becoming the center coordinator immediately. Um, and in most places, and the rule still exists that unless you're 25 years old, you don't even take on that role. But then slowly, slowly, we started taking responsibility for things that was of national importance, etc. And what I found was that where there was faith, where you really had faith in who you're doing it for, and faith in the knowledge. And I think for me, the faith in the knowledge was very important because I was seeking for the truth from a conscious age of 10 that I can remember. Asking those very important questions about who is God, how does God play a role in our lives, what is my purpose? And these were questions that used to just always be in my mind, something that I needed to get some kind of clarity for. And so it was very beautiful that when the whole aspect of knowledge came about and Baba giving us very clear directions that you are not this body, but a living soul, and that the purpose of the soul is to return back to its divine form and come back into this world in its perfect form, where you are benevolent and kind. And so these were kind of things that were very much clear to me. And in a way, I always felt I knew them, but I had no clarity. So there was a lot of faith in knowledge. Uh, that was the one thing, faith in knowledge. And second, I feel that when our purpose is clear to us, when we know what it is that we want to do. So, for example, if our aim is to enrich ourselves from the inside and work in this world as a being that is giving, and um, I think even as a young person, I used to think about how I would take care of animals, just do roles that were of caring nature. So that idea of serving was very powerful from that age onwards. So when I think about those qualities of having faith and also that deep intention to be benevolent, to perhaps in those days I never understood it like that. I only thought of it as doing something for others to care for them. And so when you look at those two qualities, you realize that when you are in a position where somebody needs assistance, then you're never going to actually stand back, because the virtue of wanting to care and assist will supersede everything. And so it becomes very natural for one to actually go beyond one's capacity, because that's where courage fits in, that I may not have the capacity, but I have such an internal faith that yes, I have what it takes to share and give. And so it's definitely motivated by faith. And if you're all up to it, I have a very beautiful story. It's actually from the Bible. And this really very beautifully again talks about what courage is. Because courage is not something we kind of like develop because somebody told us something, but actually it's by understanding ourselves. And that's why in this knowledge, what Baba is doing by introducing ourselves to us is actually all the foundation to have courage. So in the story of David and Goliath, so there was a time in history when there was this huge monster. He must have been about 5 meters tall, really huge character. And because of his physical strength and height, he was just creating disaster wherever he was going. And obviously, the king of the day was trying to get rid of him because he was a threat to the community. And so they would send armies to attack him and kill him. And as they confronted him, he was able to, just trample them like an elephant would. And so it became really a big issue. Now, David in the scriptures is remembered as someone who was a sheep herd. He was looking after the sheep, because physically the body of David was of a very petite young individual. He was not even well built. So he looked very small, and people really felt he was useless in a sense. Men had to be huge and powerful, and they had the ability to fight. So when the war with Goliath started, David's elder brothers, who were much more strong and powerful, including his father, all went to war, and they kept him at home to look after the sheep and the women. And David very happily did his work to look after the sheep. He had to learn different ways in which to deter wild animals and wolves and lions, depending on what it was. And so he learned how to use a sling to actually deter these wild animals. So it's a skill he developed naturally or taught himself. On the other hand, everyone kept going and trying to attack this Goliath, and everyone failed. So one day, David took up the courage and he went to the king and he said, "Give me an opportunity to join your army and kill the Goliath." And they said, "You, I mean, really?" So the king said, "Okay, if you're going at least out there, you wear my armor." Now, if you think about David being a very small, petite boy, the king was almost like double or triple his size. And as soon as he put the armor on, poor David fell down. And so the king said, "I really don't think you are able to do this." And he said, "Give me one chance. I don't need any armor. I just need to go out." So David actually never needed to physically confront the Goliath, because using the sling, he could be quite far away at a distance and use his sling with the stone and knock those animals out. So he had a lot of experience in learning how to target his opponent. So that's exactly what he did. He didn't have to even come within 5 meters of the Goliath, and from a distance, and his shooting skills were so good because he had so much practice doing this looking after the sheep. And with one go, he knocked the Goliath down because he hit him in his forehead and he collapsed. And so that was the end of Goliath. And so that gave David the victory. So there's a couple of things here that is very beautiful to unpack, and it's actually very important in our Brahmin life. So David then was the favorite in terms of being king because he conquered Goliath. So the people wanted David to be king. But the king had a son, and the son's name was Jonathan. And so the whole idea was that after the king, Jonathan would be king. But Jonathan realized that the love that the people had for David, for saving them, that they really wanted him to be crowned as king. And because everybody was in disfavor of David, because they thought he was so small, so useless, yeah, what can he do? So they were very antagonistic. But Jonathan had such faith and he supported David in becoming the king. So in the history, it's remembered that David was the greatest king that ever reigned. But it's also remembered that Jonathan was a king maker. So look at the story, which is so lovely in terms of the potential that because Jonathan had the courage to give up his own pride and ego and understand what people really required, that good that he did in supporting David, having faith in David, actually allowed David to be the king. But it also gave him the opportunity to become the one who is the kingmaker. And for David, the courage was that physically he was not suited to go and combat the Goliath, but he actually understood his power was not in combating anyone, but he knew the usage of his sling and the strength that he had of never missing a target. And so those were things that were not external. Those were things that were known for the self. And that's why on our journey with Baba, it is essential that we have self-respect. Because if there is self-respect, the soul is able to conquer all the different challenges that comes through. And we are actually quite amazed by this small little quality of self-respect because it is not about the ego trying to create a space within the world. The beautiful thing about self-respect is that I already have a space. I already belong. I am. And so it is not the word to become. Ego wants to become, it wants to possess, it wants to conquer, it needs to feel respected and regarded. But the respect is always I am, I know, I have, I belong. And we get going with what we need to do without any show. And so I think this is something that in our Brahman life, Baba is teaching us every day because when he comes forth, he says, sweet children. So he's giving me a statement, I am sweet. And when he says children, immediately, I am a child of God. So there are many powerful affirmations in which Baba reminds us who we are. It's our responsibility, though, to take that title or that quality that Baba is giving us and bring it into our lives to the point where we become and feel like the soul. We actually live the life of uh, an incorporeal energy that's constantly radiant and peaceful. So the word that Baba would now normally use in the Murli is that we have to remove the word sometimes and bring in the word constant. And so this is really our aim, that we don't actually have to do anything extraordinary because I am. And this is something we need to really bring home to ourselves. I am. And it's not the I of ego, it's the I of the self as a soul. And when that power of knowing I am becomes my thoughts, words, and deeds, then there is no room for anything to happen that will cause me anything that will be shameful, full of guilt. Because when I am and I work with that energy, even moments that are dips in our lives, which means moments of challenges, confrontation, the soul will be able to lift itself above that confusion, because as the being that it is, the soul will always be directed towards the supreme. So when I say I am the soul, then the natural relationship that I have is to be the child of God. And it's in this relationship of being God's child that the soul is able to have all its virtues, all its powers, all its strengths. Now, we hear these things in the Murli every day, but it's important for us to ask the question, if I am the ocean of peace, what does it feel like? What does it look like? Can I attach a smell to it? What are the different vibrations that come with that one quality? If I say I am love, what does love look like? Because where there's love, there's no separation, there's absolute closeness and unity. So not only do I feel united with the Supreme Being as my parent, my friend, but every single soul in this world is someone that is mine. I belong to them and they belong to me. So to feel that quality that I am love, I need to be able to interact with each one with that feeling of belonging, that feeling of this one is mine. And that feeling of belonging actually becomes a very powerful strength. So, for courage, this quality of love is also very essential. In David's story, is that as much as they were putting him down, he really understood that he himself is a resident of that land, and that this was his land to protect. And he, instead of saying, well, it's okay if they don't know who I am, I'll just do my own thing. He had a deep concern that it was his people, that means the people of his country, that were actually suffering. And so he felt himself to be responsible to resolve it. Now, when we in this Brahman life have that kind of commitment to each other and Baba, then all these little things that happen on a day-to-day basis, that can be very annoying, that can even be very real in a sense that they can be issues in our lives. But when I understand really that this is mine, mine in the sense that this is my Baba, this is my family, this task of renewal is my task, and I'm part of this family with the divine to change this old world and bring it back to the new. So when we have this kind of clarity, again, the beginning I said that, having knowledge is very important. This clarity, this deep understanding, this faith, then the soul is invincible. And so it is really beautiful for each one of us to use Baba's Murli as a mirror. Every day when Baba speaks, he's actually creating a beautiful image in front of me, and I can look at that image and ask myself, how close am I to that? Because Baba is looking at me. He has X-ray visions where he can bypass all the acquired vices and the sanskaras of body consciousness, and he can go straight into that invisible, beautiful being of light energy who is eternally pure, peaceful, loving, and happy. And when Baba sees that, then Baba is never distracted by our weaknesses. On the other hand, we are constantly looking at our weaknesses. We are aware of our weaknesses. We see those weaknesses in the actions that we perform, and we use those to actually dishearten us. There's a very powerful statement when it comes to the law of karma, and it goes like this: no one can hurt me, no one can harm me, but I can use people and things to hurt myself. So it's like that with our connections with people. Sometimes we use people and things as an excuse for why we're not where we need to be. But actually, even though people may be in very elevated positions, they can be in a role of leadership when it comes to our workplaces, whatever it is, or we can be the leaders within our workplaces, and others are constantly trying to create disturbance and distractions. But when I know myself, then those little things, those little incidents and people, they just like side scenes. And Baba would always tell us in the Murli that these are side scenes. And these side scenes actually make our life very entertaining. Because when we have a challenge of someone really making life what we would call difficult, then it allows us to re-gear ourselves as to what I really need to do. So when I have a challenge of an individual and they really bringing some level of stress into my mind, it makes me go deeper and ask myself what part of me is still influenced by that one's behavior, because that's all it is. I still have one weak thing that actually is creating a reaction. When people have allergies, like when there's a change of season, they might sneeze when there's pollen in the air or dust. And these days, many people have allergies, so they sneeze a lot or they're uncomfortable when those irritants are in the air. But the interesting thing is that we call those things irritants, but we don't realize that our body doesn't have the immunity to deal with it. And that's why it's become an irritant. So if I build the capacity of my body to build my immune system, then anything that comes from the outside cannot create a reaction. And that's exactly what an irritant is, or what we call an allergy. We become allergic to something because our body actually doesn't have the immunity to deal with it. And so, with the whole idea within the Brahmin family, within our work environment, we have to ask ourselves this question: how do I build immunity so that I don't become influenced and I don't react to that person? And we have been on this journey for 84 births. So we agree that for 21 births in the Golden Age and Silver Age, we were definitely having strong immune systems. And so nothing got under our skin. But from the Copper Age onwards, that's when our little weaknesses started emerging. And it started with our own preferences, what we like, what we don't like. We started making choice. And the whole idea of the fall of the golden age is one apple, the choice of eating the apple. And what does that apple represent for us that becomes the fall from this beautiful era of the golden and silver age to the downfall from the copper age right to the iron age? And from that moment we ate the apple, we've been falling till we come to the end of Kali Yuga, and then Baba comes to pick us up. So, one thing that is very essential is that when you know something is really troubling you, you need to again have courage, because you need to be able to look at that which is weak, that which is disturbing, not with the idea that I am weak, but that there is something that has power to create a disturbance, an influence, an irritant, and get me to react. It almost is the one thing that can press my buttons and start the whole activation of my emotions. So there are a couple of things in this here. First of all, why have I given the keyboard of my life to somebody else so they can press the buttons? So that's the first question I can ask myself. And secondly, why is my immune system still challenged that things from the outside can actually affect it? And thirdly, what can I do to make sure that I can strengthen that immune system so that I can really be authentically myself? Because in my authentic form, actually, I'm whole. There's no weak spots, there's no cracks for anything to infiltrate. And that's actually what we need to look at constantly, is that I'm reacting because something is able to penetrate into my consciousness and affect me. So when I do this checking on my own, I'm finding ways and means to actually build myself up. Um, some of you who may have had to go and get your back massage, or when your hand or arm or neck was sore, you would notice that the cause of the pain is a knot that has developed. And when you go to the individual who does that massaging, they will find those knots and then very gently start applying pressure and movement only on the knot. Sometimes a little bit closer to the knot, but most of the time they're on the knot, just giving it lots and lots of attention. And slowly, slowly, as they massage into the knot, which obviously exacerbates the pain, but the whole thing is that as they work on the knot, they're dissolving it. So the one way that we can work on the knot, which is the issue that we're dealing with, our weakness or the sanskara, is to constantly ask ourselves, why? Why am I feeling like this? Why is this able to get me down? The other thing is that, how am I feeling about it? And when we ask ourselves that question in that way, we actually then going deep into our subconscious to find that answer. Now, the method to get into our subconscious is also a very interesting one. And I feel that these questions are best asked when we wake up early in the morning. So, when your sleep breaks, I don't know how individuals wake up, whether they use alarm clocks, but I choose to wake up when my sleep breaks. And so it's telling myself that I need to wake up and then wake up. But for whatever reason you need the use of alarm clock, go ahead. But you need to wake up at least 15, 20 minutes before your waking up time, because this activity does take a fair amount of time. And you always keep at your bedside a notebook with a pen. And when you wake up in the morning, ask yourself the question, how am I feeling? Now, if something is bothering you, then definitely when you wake up, it's going to pick up those things and then start writing. And after you've written a bit and you come to a point of some kind of conclusion, then you ask yourself, so why am I feeling about this thing in this way? And so you then even start further going deep into the things that you've written and questioning yourself, how do you feel emotionally? How do you feel about it as a reality in your life? Whatever you are writing, you need to actually respond to it. And so when you go deep into that feelings of whatever it is, like if you come to the conclusion that I felt hurt because this person rejected me. So then the question is, why did you feel rejection from that person? Was it only that person that makes you feel rejected? Or in general, when individuals do that, you feel rejected? Then you can work out whether it's the quality, the weakness of being rejected, or it's the individual, because others can do it and it doesn't bother me. But when that person does it, then it bothers me. So these are the kind of stuff that we need to work out instead of just pointing our fingers out to the situation or the person. We really need to work out where it is that it's coming from inside of me. what is the trigger? Who have I handed the keyboard of my life to that they can press the buttons like that? And as soon as we start unpacking, you don't have to make sense, just unpack it. You are being heard by writing it down. And you can write as much as 3 pages. This actual technique comes from a book. I forget the author, but the name of the book is called The Artist's Way. And this technique is called morning pages. And they're really amazing because when we go to sleep each night, our conscious mind goes to rest and even putting a rest to our sanskaras, but our subconscious wakes up. And that's why when we experience all these dreams and these kind of things, it's actually what we've stored in our subconscious that gets a chance to be surfaced. So when we wake up in the morning, our subconscious is open. But obviously, in that state, we are a little sleepy, we're a little grumpy and groggy. So we open the curtains, we jump into the shower, we have a cup of coffee to drink or something, and we change that sleepy, groggy mode and we become alert. But what we actually do is that everything that woke up in the subconscious while we were sleeping, we completely suppress. We shut the doors by having that caffeine, by having that shower, by opening the windows and having fresh air. So, actually, then that very vital moment of getting deep inside and connecting with my own feelings is missed out. So, I would suggest that really take that valuable time first thing in the morning to talk to the self, to actually um, unravel what is it that I'm so sensitive about that I store in my subconscious, that I can hide away in my conscious living, but I store in my subconscious, which begins to become infested, becomes actually a problem inside of me. And when we can resolve this, we actually getting to know ourselves better. And this becomes a very key thing to help me move away from old patterns and allow me to embrace new things. So, courage is always that quality we need to move out of our comfort zone into a space that is new to us. And the only stepping stone for that courage is the faith that we have in the knowledge of who we are and having faith in who we belong and what we really are. So these kind of things that are in a way part of our daily lives, you don't need to go to some psychotherapist or whoever to kind of help you resolve some things. In cases where things are beyond your control, getting help is really important. It's important rather to get the help than actually live a life of suppression and confusion. Baba obviously gives us a very beautiful method every day to talk to him and talk to ourselves as well. So if you look at Baba's Murli, Baba is the best therapist. He knows all these things. I mean, I'm quoting you this exercise of morning pages. Baba tells us to write our chart. It's exactly that. So there is no difference in what Baba is telling us, but sometimes we don't unpack what Baba is telling us. Every little thing, whether it is we see such fantastic methods of our BK family coming up with this program and that program, but actually it's all in Baba's Murli. It's always been inspired by Baba's Murli. But Baba's way is that he gives us the raw material, and we need to take that raw material and break it down. So Baba's children who have taken the Murli and then created causes from it and programs means that they've taken Baba's knowledge and started churning it deeply and found ways in which this knowledge can be practiced. So if we take the raw material of Gyan and find practices of it, then we'll find that we are actually practically imbibing knowledge, but we're also expanding our intellect, because when we actually churn Baba's knowledge, the intellect is getting expanded. And we must remember that in this confluence age, the divine intellect is key. And it is because the world doesn't change. The only thing that changes is our intellect and how we perceive the world in the form of how we're going to act upon the directions of the world is based on our intellect. So again, it's faith in the intellect and the clarity of the intellect that comes with knowledge. So one can't emphasize enough how knowledge and faith are the two key things in allowing us to have courage. And courage is not just being brave. I think that's perhaps not the right thing in a way, but it's a more subtle energy that allows me to focus on that which is true and not give up until it's done. So all the other virtues will come in, but definitely having faith and having this powerful clarity of Baba's knowledge are the two stepping stones. So as I'm looking at the time, we're like close on to 15 minutes to closure. So I could stop right here and give you an opportunity to ask any questions. And I really would love if you would unmute yourself and even maybe give me an opportunity to talk to you by opening your cameras as well. So yeah, any questions?
I had one question, sister.
Mm-hmm.
I love this talk about the morning message, and you're right. When the morning you are still in that subconscious, and sometimes you also have a little bit of a dream, and you're trying to actually remember because sometimes you feel you got a divine message in that dream. Have you practiced, or can you guide us? How do you actually recall that dream? Like, is there a method to do that?
Honestly, that's not my intention. But my intention really is when I have a dream, I'm aware that something is troubling me, that something's on my mind, that I am not resolving. So then writing and creating that clarity will help me resolve it. So I don't have to go into demystifying the dream, which is what people want to do. I think they just symbols, and however you put a name to it, I wouldn't say it's right or wrong because it's not my intention to do that. My real intention is that I want to unpack that which I'm storing incorrectly and want to actually move forward rather than expand into something completely new. Because sometimes what happens with souls now, they start getting so over involved in those dreams, it becomes another expansion. And honestly, for me, that's not my aim.
Thank you, sister.
Anyone
Anybody else?
else?
Om Shanti. I hope you can hear me because I'm quite weak. You can hear me, sister?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, see, courage. You were speaking of the golden and the silver ages, and I was thinking what was courage in the copper age and what is courage? There's no courage in the iron age, it's survival of the fittest. The one who can raise the weapon and kill the person in front is said to be the bravest of all. So that was courage in the um, Iron Age. But courage in the Confluence Age, really, it's something different because this is the first time when God comes down to say who you are, what you are actually, and how do you face that the courage. And there are so many things he says, himate bache, matate baap, one step you take, I give you 1,000 steps. We have listened to all that. But what I always felt is courage is something like something, an inner power in you, it gives you a determination that let anything happen in my life positively, I am going to move forward. I'm going to look at myself and I'm going to take my USPs. What's my USP? And that's what I think is the first step to courage, to really transform yourself. Otherwise, courage, we just say is bravery. But Baba says but we feel it's like a spiritual strength. It's not bal yoga, it's yoga bal, not that bahubal, to transform oneself, to stay in purity, how courage comes, and to have cheerfulness. I just want you to ask one question, sister. Can you? It's a little direct question, like a student. Courage in knowledge, role of courage in yoga, courage in dharana, and courage in service. If you can just give it a little, and I know you, Usha Ben, in service, courage, Vedanti Ben's people have really undaunted courage. I have heard stories. But if you can just give me the role of courage in all these four subjects, it makes my something very firm to know what we, the Brahma Kumaris, are giving in the conference age. Om Shanti.
Okay, so if I kind of get it right, when I started, I said that definitely we're not talking about a physical strength. We're talking about courage that's based on knowledge, which is the awareness of the self, and faith in the one, which is Baba. And so when I actually have the total knowledge of who I am, so if you talk about Gyan, the first subject is really for the intellect to have the clarity, not only just to have information, but when the intellect has knowledge, it means that my attitude is based on being a soul. And so I'm working from that basis that yes, I'm a pure being, I'm a loving being. And that's actually the knowledge, and I act on that. So it's not even dharana, it's actually knowledge, knowing the clarity of who I am. And then in terms of yoga, it's very easy again because, you know, I'm as a soul, just a tiny point of light, but I can bring myself in par with the Supreme Soul. That's courage. That I know the clarity and I have the faith that the soul is like the Supreme Soul in virtues and qualities, which means I've had the courage to dismantle the power of body consciousness. And so that would be yoga. And then in terms of dharana, is that doesn't matter what the external situation is, whether I've done it before, I haven't done it before, I haven't had a chance. But at the confluence age, courage means that I am guided by God. Karan Karavan Hari is the one making me do it. So I actually get step out of my comfort zones and I act with virtue rather than with fear. And then in Dharan, in service, again, where we have courage is that no matter what we do, we have renounced the need for respect and regard and acknowledgement. So I'm sorry if it must have been a confusion, but I was not talking about physical strength at all. The two emphases that were made consistently is that we need to have knowledge and we need to have courage have faith in God. And it's those two qualities that actually will give the soul the ability to be courageous. The foundation is that, because even in the story of David and Goliath, physically, David was a very small person. He had no strength. But internally, he had the understanding and awareness of his own strengths. And so he knew that he can overcome because of that inner clarity that he had. So on the path, Gyan, Yoga, Dharana, all of those elements are based on the knowledge that I have from Baba and my relationship with Baba. So I hope that helps you and it creates clarity.
Yeah, that service only I wanted because what we do as Brahma Kumaris, just one second, I'll finish it. In service, we always think we are right, we are absolutely right, the whole world is wrong. And we are not careful with our words, we are not careful with our thoughts. So, but we say, no, that is courage. Like, I think as if I stand tall in front of everything, everyone are like Lilliputians. So, but for us, what do you think should be the courage in service? And if you could
So
take Africa, for example, because it would be nice.
well, I think when you think about service, first of all, nice to unpack the whole quality of service. Service is not something that I'm giving to somebody. Baba in one Murli, very beautifully, Sakar Murli, Baba said, service means to give rest and comfort. And as a server, I provide an opportunity, an atmosphere that allows an individual to experience rest. And true rest that anyone will experience is being in the nature of the soul. So when my behavior is such that it allows another to experience themselves as a soul, that would be real service. So that doesn't mean I stand and speak boldly. It's the courage to be different. It's the courage to be nonviolent. It's the courage to say no when everyone is saying yes. So, for example, when everyone is um, creating negativity about somebody, and I have the courage to say no. As a soul, my original nature is peace, love, and happiness. I'll stick to the path of peace. So, that kind of stuff is actually where courage comes in. And when I think about service, I never think about how much I do. I have to think about what difference it has made in the life of somebody else, because that's the serving. I'm bringing rest and comfort. And when I use virtues in my interaction, that's the only time others are going to be comfortable to be themselves, to be real. If around me people think, oh, this is a very senior person, or and they hop around me trying to do the things that I think I need, that actually is not service. We really need to have a shift, because I know in our Brahmin family there is a great emphasis on service, because we want to give the message of Baba to everyone, because we understand that the time is coming close. But what is the message? I am the message. I am supposed to be in the state of peace and exuding those qualities. And when it comes to being fearless, uh, if you do things that are daring, you may bring more fear into people. But actually, when you bring people close to you and move with them, that is courageous. If I was a single person and I had to go somewhere, if I need to just get myself there, it's very easy. But if I have to get 30 people across to the same destination, it'll take a lot more negotiating. But that is what service is, not my reaching a destination, but how I move with others and reach the destination collectively. So I would say that in this confluence age, we need to change our attitude of service as being the one getting a chance to speak and give the message, but how we can become the message collectively. And it has to be collectively, because the greatest service will happen. They say that at the end, they didn't see one angel, they saw a host of angels. So the greatest service anyone can do is to create unity and love in the family. And when we move together like this, then they'll say, aha, there's something new. Because knowledge is everywhere. You can Google, there's Satguru, there's this guru, there's that one. There's this knowledge is unlimited and everywhere, and everyone can give a class and everyone can do a PowerPoint and share. Now with AI, people can do astounding things. But can you be with a group of people and let each one feel respected, loved, valuable, cared for, significant? That would be service.
Thank you, sister. Good platform you created.
So, where's the rest of my family? Hello.
Hi, sister. Just one question. It's regarding you said that when the sleep breaks, you wake up and then with a pen and notebook, you write down the thoughts that's going on. So that's really wonderful, I felt. And so here one question: how can we really have a consistent yoga, and how can we really improve the quality of yoga?
So for my own practice, I find that when I get distracted by things, like it's very easy to break our connection, because our relationship with Baba is a love connection. So where the intellect is resting, that's what it's going to be connected with. So if I found an interesting hobby, even let's say I'm doing a creative thing, so it's not even impure, it's not even it's just a very interesting project I have. I'm doing something creative because now my interest is growing in that task, and it's a physical task. I'll slowly think, let me just finish this and then I'll go and have yoga, or I'll just do this. Or I start feeling happy about the doing. I'm starting to take my pleasure from the things that I can see manifesting with my eyes. So then actually the soul then starts in a way compromising that our yoga is not in the doing, our yoga is in the being. That's why Baba wants us to become quiet and still and silent. So think about just being this being of energy sitting quietly in the center of the forehead, and I can feel my own stillness, my own peace. I'm doing nothing, I'm not talking to anyone, but I can feel wonderful. I can feel powerful because I can feel the rays of peace from me going out into the world. When I can experience myself like that, my yoga with Baba will be constant. So I don't have to be thinking Baba, Baba the whole time. But if I'm staying in the correct awareness of myself, then my connection with Baba will be constant. But what happens is that we move away from the feeling here and we start seeing lovely things, we hear lovely things. I was just thinking that one thing that I appreciate a lot is like good dialogues, good literature, good when it's a powerful statement being made. I could repeatedly go and listen to those things or read it again. And I thought, how they say kandras, you entertained your ears. But I thought it's not even just that. My intellect gets stimulated by those kind of things. So that can also be, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying to you how we can get caught up in words. So it's very good to observe ourselves on all levels, that when we're doing things, how much am I remembering? Today's Avyak Mundi is all about the three levels of Karan, Karavan, Har, where I play the role deeply that as a soul, Shiv Baba is inspiring me. He's the Karavanhar, and I'm just the one doing it, Karanhar. And then I, the soul, am playing the role of Karavanhar, and the body is Karanhar who's doing it. And it's such a lovely kind of awareness to understand that I'm just a puppet. So if I'm a puppet, I've taken away all the kind of excitement which is connected to body consciousness, the achievements, the goals, the destination. Because in the stage of being a soul, the soul is already. It doesn't have to achieve anything, it doesn't have to attain anything. It is. So to feel that kind of rested state in being will actually allow me to be with Baba very closely. But that energy that we get from doing is actually an addiction. So we have so many various addictions, isn't it? Taste, smell, touch, etc., etc. And Baba is finding nice ways for us to become distant from it so that we feel Baba, we see Baba with our mind's eye, we experience the closeness and comfort with Baba. And as we work with that energy, then we can make our yoga more constant. I know it's a long answer, but I hope it helped you.
Yeah, thank you, sister.
And sister, can we have, in the interest of time, a short meditation before
Okay.
we close? Thank you so much.
Yeah. Right then, Om Shanti. So I allow my body to become completely still and relaxed. And I focus my attention on this brilliant star, the diamond-like being in the center of the forehead. I, the soul, am peace. I am love. I am power. And now I allow myself to become this radiant beacon of light and spread the rays of peace and love in all directions. Om Shanti. Sorry, I didn't realize how quickly the time went, eh?
Because it was very engaging and very inspiring, sister. Thank you for giving us those wonderful tips to be courageous. And courage is not just bravery, but courage is all inner strength as well. So thank you so much, sister. We really loved having you with us. Om
Thank
Shanti.
you. Om Shanti. Do I get to see my family or are they going to remain behind their cameras? Okay, Om Shanti. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.